Hi, everyone. Welcome to Northpointe Plus. This is episode 93. With us, we have Jake Howard, who spoke yesterday, Father's Day.
I was going to say, are you supposed to say yesterday when the podcast comes on Tuesday? Because wouldn't yesterday be Monday?
People know. I think people know by
You're
now.
letting the cat right out of the bag.
I know. People know. Because, sometimes I've noticed, Rick will say, oh, today, when we film it on Sunday. So it's really all over the place. Jake spoke on Sunday about whatever. But so how was your Father's Day?
Spoke about whatever.
How was your Father's Day? I'll let you get to that part.
It was good. It was good. We have a little 3-foot tall, 10-foot wide pool that we bought because summers are hot and my wife is pregnant and those aren't a good mix. So we bought a pool. Actually, it was actually a gracious gift. We didn't buy it. People gave it to us. So that was cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So spent some time with some delicious burgers and soaking in a pool with the kiddos. And
nice.
That was about it.
That does sound fun. It's always these kinds of weekends can sometimes be busy. I don't know if ours was busy, but it's fun. It's a fun kind of busy. Yeah. But I was more tired than unusual. But that's all right. Yeah. So do you want to give a recap of what y'all spoke about on Sunday?
Yeah.
The game was fun, the Father's Day
Did
game.
you like the Father's Day game?
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't
We found the dads amongst all dads with that Father's Day game.
Yeah. That was
there you
good.
go. And I got an excuse to buy a fanny pack. So, how much better does it get than that? But yeah, we wrapped up our Thessalonians series here at the end of 2 Thessalonians. And really, Paul kind of transitioned some from talking about the end times and the return of Jesus and all of that, and just kind of talked a little bit more about this idea of the idle and disruptive. There are some theories as he's transitioning into this passage, and we're actually going to get to a question here, that there were other leaders, or other people, I shouldn't say leaders, that were writing letters and kind of confusing the Thessalonians. And so Paul really wanted to clarify that because some people weren't working, and maybe they weren't working because they had this false belief that hey, Jesus is showing up on Thursday around 6-ish. And so Paul wanted to just clarify, what does that look like? What can we expect and all that? And that people don't need to be idle and disruptive. And so it's not just laziness. I think laziness is a big component of it. But it's just the fact that they were people who are followers of Jesus that were lazy and a burden on other people, whether it was causing more work or taking from their benefits or whatever it could be. And so Paul's kind of speaking out against that.
Gotcha. Okay, well, and so the first question, why did Paul say, this is how I write? Was there some discrepancy as to whether it the letters were from him or not?
Yeah, this came from Keith Ivkovich, right?
Yes.
Yeah, did you not want to say that last name?
It was a little scary.
A little
daunting. But
it's all right. I love Keith. I know Keith. They, him and his wife and kiddos actually serve on our nursery twice a month.
No, I was going to say, I know their kids too from working with them, but I was just Keith. It's from
we love
Keith.
Keith. Yeah, Keith. So here's the thing. Paul would have dictated pretty much all of his letters to a scribe or somebody else who would have written them down. Part of the reason for that is that Paul was in prison for a lot of his letters and a lot of his writings. And so he had somebody else who would write them, and then he would kind of sign them in after he left, a little bit of a benediction. And we see this in most of his letters. It's kind of like putting a signature. If you were to write a letter and send it, or write a card, you sign it and send it in there to show that it's from you. That's kind of what Paul had done for most of his letters, to authorize, hey, that either he wrote this or that he was authorizing the writing of this letter. So that's what he's doing here. As far as some of the discrepancy goes, like I said before, there was this idea that there was other people out there writing as Paul. They weren't really Paul, but they were writing not for him, but pretending to be him. We see some evidence of that. 2 Thessalonians 2:2. Paul included the idea, he says, of a letter seeming to be from us to the effect that the day of the Lord has come. So part of the reasons he's writing the 2 Thessalonians is to clarify the day of the Lord information, and part of that is because there seems to be other letters that someone is saying they were Paul, and this is what you need to know. It's just not true. It's not accurate. They're forgeries. And so Paul is writing here, and he kind of ends this letter to show no, this is me. I'm the real deal. I'm the real Paul. OG Paul here. Don't get into faux Pauls or whatever might be out there, finding the real one.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because if somebody just saw, one of the other letters and made one that looked exactly like it.
Have you ever done that in a recent time, Sylvia? Just out of curiosity, forge some letters?
I would like to say that Jake made me do it. Okay, so
don't hit me with a devil made me do it kind of moment here.
Our children's director, Jenna, who a lot of people saw our video from, I think it was last week, she, we had to prank her a little bit. She's
just
new to the
a
office.
Little innocent, light hazing, if we can say hazing.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, she thought it was hilarious. So, okay, it's fine. But Jake was like, oh, she has her acceptance letter to her college. Like, you should make a fake one.
Yeah.
And I did, and it was good.
It was
okay.
really
I thought
good.
it was really good.
Yeah. You even found, because she went to Liberty University, and you found like the Liberty University font.
Yes,
and everything.
I need to list. I need to put the camera on me. I put so much hard work into this. I Googled the font that the college used. I found all these, I kept the paragraph, the beginning of the paragraph the same, made little jokes about hashtag I love my coworkers in there. It was I thought it was funny to make. You thought it was funny
excellent.
too.
It was excellent.
And Jake was convinced that she was gonna, this is gonna be months. She was never gonna see it. I'm like, I think she's gonna notice right away. And we switched it last week, and she noticed today. So
yeah, I underestimated how often you read your college acceptance letter, Jenna.
Yeah,
so I apologize for that.
So I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so yes, it's funny because that's kind of what I thought of. I'm like, I have forged a letter recently.
You have.
But it was, kind of like your fault. But okay, second question. Should being a hard worker be a reflection of our commitment to Jesus as well as the other traits? What would it take for people to say that person is an incredibly hard worker? They must be a Christian.
Yeah, I think being a hard worker is something that every Christ follower should try to attain or ascribe to. I think it is a characteristic we should be known by. The Bible doesn't speak fondly, anywhere, of laziness at any point in time. The Psalms and the Proverbs have really got good stuff when it comes to talking about the pitfalls of being lazy and things like that. Obviously, we have the passage here that Paul's talking about. As far as what it would take for someone to say, oh, man, that person must be a Christian, I can tell by their hard work and ethic they put in. Mm-hmm. Being a hard worker is not like only Christians can do that, right? There can be somebody who doesn't love Jesus but works really hard at their job or really hard at being a parent or whatever it may be. So for me, I think it really would take a consistent group of people, a consistent group of Christ followers who are consistently working hard for that to make a difference. So you could work really hard at your job, and I could be super lazy at mine. And they're just not going to look at it and say, well, Sylvia must be a Christian. They're going to look at it and say, well, Sylvia must be a hard worker, right? Mm-hmm. But if every Christian is a really hard worker, then they're going to recognize, people are going to say, man, there's something different about those Christ followers. They seem to work really hard. They go above and beyond. They care about more than just their work. They're super generous in what they do. Mm-hmm. They got good time management skills, all this other stuff. There's something about Christians that just seem to be crazy out there.
It just adds on to that, oh, they must be a Christian because they're so nice. Or it's just one of those things where people have this in their heads, oh, here's a list and oh, yeah, they must be a Christian.
Some sort of positive stereotype that would be
Yes.
fantastic for us to have as Christ followers. But, there you go. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I love that. I think, to me, that's the only way I think it happens. So.
Mm-hmm. So in Europe, it looks like they have a 30-ish hour work week.
I'm officially moving to Europe. Right now, that was it.
That was easy.
That's all it took. I'm out. See you guys.
Right. And then the standard in the U.S. is 40 hours a week. Farmers typically work 60 to 70 hours a week. How much hard work is driven by the number of hours? How much is quality of work? Can you work hard 30 hours and just kind of do whatever the other 10? What do you think?
I mean, you could work hard 5 hours and just do whatever the other however many. I mean, nobody's forcing you, I guess, but you could. You'd probably get really hungry and hated, but, that is an option. I don't think there's a clear either or when it comes to this. I don't think it's just about productivity or just the amount of effort or just the amount of time that you would put into something. I think it's about putting together your best effort to try to accomplish the things that need to get done. There's some weeks that I feel like I've worked super hard to try and get things done, projects of whatever. And I've put in a lot of sweat equity. I've put in extra time. I've done all those things. And yet I don't feel super productive because that particular project, that particular task was just really labor intensive or time intensive to just move a couple steps down. And then there's other weeks I feel like I'm knocking things out left and right. And I've got plenty of time at the end of the week, it feels like, to be able to do stuff. And this might be where I become a burden to our staff because then I'm popping in offices with dumb questions or being social, whatever, which I do think has its value. But
I have to justify it. It's fine.
Thank you very much. I might. Rick watches this too, so you never know.
True,
so there you go. So I think it's not about like a set number that can be there. I think it's about hard work. I think it's about knowing your team and what's needed. I think that there are also rhythms. Some industries have a lot of tasks to complete to be productive. I think some other jobs are really about kind of an unending amount of work. So there's never really an end to what you're trying to accomplish. It's not about checking off a box or doing a task. Some jobs are that way. Some jobs are not that way, where you don't accomplish a task, but you continue to try and move the ball down the field in what you do. So productivity looks different for different jobs. It looks different for different styles of jobs.
It's different for everybody.
Yeah, so hard work's not just about being productive. It's about the energy and the effort that you put into it, I would say.
Yeah, well, and like just to me, like it's kind of like in the question, like farmers are, work a lot more than just the 40 hours a week. Like every job is different. And like you already said, like just looks different. So you guys, like as pastors, it's like very like people driven. Yeah. Like the amount of like, Rick meets with people all the time, is always sending notes. Like, so yeah, he's doing like his main job, but then he's also like, working on other things and, staying later than that, and like you said, where you're like, I can work on the move. Like I am always doing stuff.
Yeah.
And so like, it's just funny because it works, for everybody's different. And especially maybe since COVID, like working from home, like my parents, like their jobs look a lot different. Like just my dad working from home, it's like he used to work at MSU. Now he's just at home and on a computer, and it looks different. Like he doesn't have as much contact with everybody. So,
I'd also say I think there's some times where I feel like I've been really productive and I maybe knocked down a lot of tasks and things like that. But my wife is staying home with the kiddos. And I know there's times she's working harder than I am.
Oh, yeah. Like
when I'm here in the office.
Right. It's different. Like it's just different jobs, different everything.
And I'd argue what she does has probably a better and longer lasting effect than what I do at times.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so fourth question here. 2 Thessalonians 3:6 says to keep away from those that are idle and disruptive. Shouldn't we want to be around them to show them by our actions how not to be idle and disruptive? This from Kate.
Yeah, what a good question, because it seems a little counterintuitive to that. Like we want to be an example. The Bible talks about they'll know you by your fruits, talks about being a light in this world, a city set on a hill, like all those things. So why is it now all of a sudden the Bible's like, yeah, except for this particular one. This one you should actually push people away. Everything else be an example. This one, like, don't even like associate, don't be around people. So it does feel a little counterintuitive to what we see in other places in Scripture. And I think there's really two important things to keep in mind with that. I think number one, Paul is writing to the church. This isn't like a life principle for everybody all the time. I do think there are ways that this can apply, especially with healthy boundaries and things like that, whether you're a part of the church or not. Like some things, if it's good, it's good. So I do think that's a little bit there. I think there is some lack of a better term here, church discipline ideas that come in here that is really just for the Jesus family here. So I don't think you can always expect the same results out of the family of Christ. So I think that's kind of an important thing Paul's writing to the church here. And then I think it's also important to recognize this is the last step in dealing with idle and disruptive, that by now you've already been the example. You've already had the conversations, the heart-to-hearts, the care, the compassion, the second chances. You've brought other people along in the discussion to say, see, I'm not the only one who thinks this way. Carl, he sees the same thing, and Carl loves you too. Like, we should figure this out together. There's so much more you can offer, so much more you can do, and not be a burden to other people. Like, man, step up and do this for your family, do this for your community, do this for your church, like all these things. And then they've ignored and it's getting to the point where they are a burden on other people. It's not just their laziness and affecting them, but now their stuff's affecting the church. It's affecting others. And Paul says that's when you've got to begin to distance yourself with redemption in mind. It's not punitive. It's not a punishment. It's not to say, fine, you didn't listen to me. You're out of here, Sylvia. No, it's just that recognition of saying, okay, I can't be around it as much then. Like if this is how you're going to do stuff, I'm not going to be on the same projects with you. I'm not going to have the same expectations. I'm going to go and be about my business and doing what needs to be able to be done. And hopefully you feel that distance and recognize, man, I'm missing out on the good stuff.
Yeah.
I need to get back. I need to get better. And so you're setting the example almost in a different way.
I was going to say that probably might be like the snap of reality too. Like, oh, they're serious. Like they're going to cut me out of their life now, or, however that looks. But I think that might kind of be like, man, like a rude awakening or something to be like, oh, shoot, kind of.
Yeah.
need to change.
I mean, Paul, this is even the second letter Paul's addressed this in. So when Paul's saying this, like he's already had conversations in 1 Thessalonians about it, and they still were like, shut up, Paul. And he's like, all right, fine. Well, one more time then.
Let's try this again.
Yeah.
Round 2.
Yeah.
All right. So last question here. I hate to say it, but I've known some really lazy pastors. What do you guys do to make sure you live out this passage of scripture?
Yeah. Any pastor that's got a good golf game is a really lazy pastor. And I've been beaten by some very lazy pastors all the time. In fact, that's going to be my line from now on. Whenever I'm like playing sports or like doing something with another pastor and they're really good at it, I'm going to say, you should spend more time in the Bible, actually.
Yeah, right.
Less time
like,
on the court
with your
pickleball.
That's
Hope you
that's
break
some
an
pretty
ankle.
good smack talk. I know how to come back from that, actually. I'd
Yours
be like,
just not as holy of a pastor as I am.
Yeah, yikes.
That's why
Be
you
like-
dunked on me. There you go.
that's why. That's why. Yeah.
No, I think the reality is no two jobs and no two industries are the same. Like anywhere, we see this all of the time. If you're self-employed, you have a totally different workflow than somebody who works for a large corporation. I remember my time at State Farm when I was Jake from State Farm. There you go.
Insert joke here.
Insert joke here. Yes, red shirt, khakis, had the whole thing. I was an in the field claims rep. So I literally worked out of a car. It was one of those transits, those ugly looking vans, and went everywhere. And then they had the in-office reps who, when you would call in, most of the time you would go to them. And it was almost like we were two different gangs at times. It's what was it? What was the movie? They were the Jets and the Sharks or whatever it was. It's a play. It's a Broadway play. It's a movie as well. Come on. No idea. I can't remember.
I think
either.
I can
They're
see
on the
it in my
snapping
head.
thing. Oh,
Yeah,
it's somebody's
but
watching this podcast shouting it out
Probably
right
Rick.
now.
Probably Rick.
I know, and I'm sorry that I'm not up on my theater right now. It's gonna hit me later.
Somebody will comment.
Yeah, but it felt, there you go. Leave a comment. There you go. So it felt like these two different worlds, but we had totally different workflows. So that would be no big deal for me to go and like run a quick errand on my way between jobs. And it would make the people in office angry about it because they're like, I don't ever get that flexibility or those things. And we would always rebuttal and say, yeah, but you've never walked into a house that has bed bugs and then gone home. Like that's just these things. And so these just different worlds almost, even though we were in the same industry, they were still different worlds. Every pastor I know has heard the jokes, like we were just making jokes about golf and all these other kinds of things. And the reality is, yes, there are lazy pastors out there, and there are lazy CEOs, and there are lazy teachers, and lazy.
They're lamey too.
They're lamey too. Lazy plumbers, lazy fishermen, lazy whoever. It's a laziness is a reality world. It's a shame, but it's a reality. And every pastor has probably been lazy at some point in their life too, just like the rest of us. It's part of it. It's not an excuse to like make a bad choice, but it's just a reality. This passage wasn't about being lazy once as much as a lazy lifestyle. So I think that's important to recognize. I would also think, speaking for us in ministry, we have, and we've talked about this before, there are the ability to get into good rhythms in ministry. There are times in ministry that you are super duper busy. Christmas, Easter, conferences, counseling, wedding, funerals, like all of it can happen. And you may not recognize what a storm that it feels like you're about to walk into, but then you've got 2 funerals and you've got a Sunday sermon to be able to prep. You've also got a counseling thing that you were a part of. You're also doing some training and stuff for other people. And all of a sudden that week was crazy. Yeah. And then the following week, it was much lighter. And you're like, man, I wish this would have been spread out at times. And that's not just in ministry, right? Like there's a lot of industries that have that kind of thing. And so I think the healthy flip side of that coin is recognizing, at least for me, if I lived by that hard of a rash of a schedule all the time, or like I felt like I was constantly having to do all of that all the time, it would be really hard on my family. If I'm just being honest, like if I'm at all the night meetings over here and I'm doing the weddings and the funerals over here, then it would just be my girls would feel like they never got to see me or be a part of it. So what do? I take time back in other times. So I may have a crazy season. Christmas and Easter are like the ones we know about, right? But then it may be a lighter. Usually this time of year is a little bit lighter for most people with the summer. It's a Michigan thing. It's true of us a little bit in ministry as well. And so I may take some time back and spend time with my girls or hobbies that I love and to be able to do. And I don't feel bad about that. I think that still I'm able to work hard when the work is there to be able to do and get it back when I can. So you may see me at a Tuesday matinee movie and maybe I'm being lazy.
Or out garage sailing.
Maybe I'm being lazy. Maybe I'm just taking some time back. I'll never tell. So I guess the assumption's on you.
But I was going to say, that's like the thing. Like you never know. Like I could see somebody somebody out and about like at Meijer today and be like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, I'm out buying stuff for the church, but what are you doing? Like, you just never know. And like, taking a break or whatever. And I'm glad you brought up like the holidays, because it's almost even something I like block out of my mind. Like the ones where we always have to, like Christmas and Easter where you're working, and Christmas Eve though. Like
December really is the craziest month.
Yeah. Like just
like life.
Or even like Mother's Day, and we set up the like camera stuff, or like doing the pictures, and like that's work too. Like, so just all these little extra things, it is work. And like you're working on a Sunday when everybody else is just coming for the little bit. So like,
and we're fortunate, as ministry staff, we have Fridays off to be able to do stuff.
Right.
Now things happen on Fridays too. Just like everybody else, things happen on.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, just because we're here doesn't mean like every time we have something extra at the church though too. Like, somebody's got to work that. Like, so it's just like our time frames just might look different. Like, so, like I was going to say, like when Andy takes off like the afternoons on a Wednesday because he works Wednesday night. Like, so it's just like, we're all just shifting time.
It's about figuring out flows. Yeah.
But
and the reality is God's in control. Like if I'm not doing what he knows I should be able to do, and put in the effort that he's given me with the skills that he's given me to be able to do, he's going to hold me accountable. He's a good dad. He's going to discipline me. He's going to correct me. He's going to try and put me on the right path because he loves me and he cares not only about me, but our church and all those things too. So, there is that ultimate authority we answer to him. The most intimidating passage in scripture about pastors having a whole like another degree of accountability that's put on there, judgment that's put on there, is enough to want to keep you out of ministry, if I'm being honest, because that's like of all the Bible, I love the Bible. I really don't love that passage because then it's like, hey,
got a big old magnifying
hey Jake,
glass on
I'm
you.
watching you more in this leadership role and all this other stuff, and it's like I got to keep that in mind because I do have to stand before God at some point in time, and He's gonna say all of these things of my life as well, and that's important. So.
Yeah, but I liked your answer to that because, like, there are those kinds of people out there that are just, either lazy pastors or, like you said, lazy CEO. Like, everybody's got one. I think you said that on Sunday, too. Like you said, everybody knows Todd or something.
Everybody knows Todd.
Yeah.
I always throw out a weird name. There's probably somebody out there named Todd who was like, dang, dude, you
yeah, it's kind of like, like Karen. Like when people really Todd. Named Karen and they hate that, like, it's a bad thing now.
There's nothing better, though, when my friends that are named Karen and, like, they get just slightly annoyed and they go, Karen. Okay, Karen. Right, and like overplay it and watch them just shake their head because they feel like Karens can never get justifiably mad anymore.
From that was like a cultural. This is a cultural thing now. Like it's a Karen. Like and you know exactly what people are talking about when they say it. So Well, thanks, Jake. Do you have any other lasting comments?
No, I think, I said no and I'm about to make comments.
That's all right.
I did that. We're said no and I'm getting ready.
Thing. This is your show. You take it away. You know what? Spotlight. Take it away.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually change my answer to yes. Okay. Tune in on Thursday for the podcast with our missionaries to the Ukraine, Herb and Kim. I think there's going to be some really cool stories and good stuff there. I'm going to recognize God is a big God, and he's moving and doing stuff all over, even in horrible situations like war, that the gospel is still moving, and that's incredible. The other stuff, as I would say, is if you haven't met Jenna, meet Jenna, and not only meet her, but jump on her teams. Like do some stuff in nursery or with toddlers or with kiddos, or even if you are one of those special individuals in the world who loves to work with preteens, because man, our kids deserve good leaders. We need more good leaders to be a part of it so that we can have spaces to worship, so that we can help this next generation to reach with the gospel and watch them grow. So if you've considered it, if you've thought about it, even if you're petrified of it, test it out anyway.
Yeah, come try it. Yeah, just try it.
Yeah, there's good stuff in children's ministry. So I would say get in contact with Jenna because she's got some really cool stuff in store. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jake. So thanks, everybody, for watching. And hopefully you'll watch that podcast on Thursday. And then we'll see you Sunday.